Welcome everybody to another episode of Esports with Emmerich. I'm Emmerich, of course, and we're going to be discussing EU Masters Day 1 results. We're going to talk about Day 2, a look ahead. I think it's a pretty juicy slate. There's some teams that are mispriced, and we're going to talk a little bit about it. But let's go ahead and review a little bit on Day 1. I made 50 cents, so that was pretty cool. This slate was not exactly the best if you were somebody that likes to back the underdogs, as I like to. Obviously, shoot for that first place, and not a lot of cash games that were super exciting to play on this slate, and not a lot of great tournaments for that matter. But the DraftKings hates the midday slates here. But first game, we saw Misfits Premier play against Rogue. This was a game where we expected Misfits to come out and win this game, but I did at least think that Rogue was a live dog here, and they played pretty well. This was a game where, at certain points, I think that they were in a position that they looked like they could kind of take it, and then it just kind of fell apart for them and abruptly ended. You're looking at the compositions here. Nothing crazy. The LeBlanc pick was utilized fantastically all across the map. Woolite didn't have his best game. I mean, nobody really scored well in this. Let's be honest. Misfits were super expensive. We talked about that this morning. Really, my whole thing around the Misfits was that they were going to be so expensive that they would probably be under-owned, and that was the case. But it didn't pay to roster them. They look strong. Rogue looks good, but they still have some of the same problems that they've had when they've lost and played better competition. Is just that they just don't seem to put it together late. Whatever. Then one of the more disappointing games, Anthosis Famagusta, was a team that really was backing, was thinking that, this was going to be a high kill team. This was a team that could upset UCAM. I didn't think UCAM was very good. Again, pretty standard compositions. You see the Malphite here, which is not something that you regularly see in upper level major region pro play, but, certainly a viable top laner. One of the things that I was thinking about it, and I didn't mention it so much. I think I did in the preview show, but I didn't really put too much context behind it. When you look at Anthosis Famagusta and you look at those regular season numbers with that 28 kills per win, all of their regular split ran through 11.13. So there was some pretty significant changes to the gameplay at 11.14. And I don't know if that was something that I had totally considered. I did look at it and think that the teams that were not as used to playing on the newer patches were going to be at a disadvantage, but I didn't really think about the impact that might have on their gameplay, their style, and some of the different item nerfs and champion nerfs, and just complete change in meta from that patch till now. Certainly these teams have played in the playoffs and they have some familiarity with it, but I don't know. We'll kind of track it. Again, we were not so sure if Anthosis Famagusta was going to be able to translate that high kill game into this better competition. UCAM didn't look good. They are who we thought they were. I don't have high hopes for this team. They were pretty expensive too. Yeah. Now let's go right here. We've got a little. Yeah. This kind of hurt everybody. In the high stakes, I did play big. I thought that they were going to be a pretty safe pick here. I don't think super highly of Fnatic, and this game kind of reinforced that. They do get out ahead sometimes, and then they just kind of fall apart to some extent when they're playing better teams. They almost threw this game back, but they were just so far ahead. It wasn't something that was going to happen. Rux played a great Rakan. I'm not a big fan of Renekton in the mid lane, and if you were somebody that had DeJour as your captain, that kind of sucked. I didn't have a lot of Maxi. I first of all didn't have a lot of Fnatic stacks to begin with, let alone enough Maxi on the stacks that I did have. So that was kind of disappointing. I still think Big looked pretty good. These are two teams that we're going to keep our eye on. And, when Fnatic does win, they're going to win similar to this. They're going to put up 18, 19 kills. They're going to be viable in fantasy. I think we should continue to target them specifically when they're going to be underdogs, as we'll get some advantages on that. Going into the next one, this was Up to this point, I bet almost exclusively dogs. So not only are my lineups looking kind of bad, but all of my bets were not going so well. Lunar Gaming was able to kind of pull that together for me. Look, that was a weird game. What was Zero Tenacity doing? They just let Camille take break open the base, take the inhibitor, take a Nexus tower before anybody get back to kind of address it. And, really at that point, this game, which wasn't really far out of their reach, they just kind of ceded that, and then they couldn't even win the Baron fight when they had a man advantage there. Then the quick little teleport backdoor. I mean, they were right there on the edge of the base already. That game was, I don't know, man. That game was pretty disappointing from a fantasy perspective. I thought it was kind of similar to Misfits and Rogue in the sense that, it was playing, and if you went to the bathroom, came back, the game was over. And you were like, what? Like, how? Like, how did this game just end like this? But nevertheless, we saw some good performances on Illuminar. I'm pretty excited about this team. I did have some questions in terms of, their experience level on the stage and what they were going to be able to bring here. I guess Zero Tenacity is not necessarily the best litmus test, but we'll see. Then we went to the banger game. This was the game that if you had either side of this, depending on how you stacked it, this is where you needed to be, man. You had Vodafone Giants, you had Mako. This game was back and forth. It was really the Attila show. And I don't know, like this draft from Mako is just super questionable. I don't know what it is about teams and just not wanting to buy heel cut items, but you've got a Seraphine, you've got a Karma, you've got everybody with Divine Sunder. Why it took so long to get Grievous Wound items and, kind of negate that to some extent, I'm not sure. Neither of these teams had a big burst in terms of damage. And so those fights were going to be longer sustained fights. And, we just saw kind of Attila just kind of smurf on these guys. Mini Duke, as much as I dislike him, really played towards the end pretty well. I mean, when he was able to steal the right ultimates, they were able to make something out of that. I think the Antonio had a fantastic game as well. 113 was not somebody that really impressed me in this game, and hasn't really impressed me pretty much the entirety of the split. This game kind of reinforced it. I don't see this team being able to make a deep run because they have some of these weaknesses. You could even see with Mini Duke playing as well as he did, that was kind of the peak. That's peak Mini Duke. That's as good as it gets. And there were still a lot of mistakes there. So we'll see. I think this is a team that is going to be one that we're going to want to target against just because there's going to be the recency bias. Finally, Carmine Corp, Mouse. Again, a little bit of a disappointing game in terms of kill total. Carmine Corp looked super good. Mouse didn't look bad, though. They didn't look outclassed. They looked like they were right there with them. Carmine did look, a little bit better, and they got the win for it. So, that was day one. We didn't see, outside of that Mako Vodafone game, anything that was super strange. We did see Sayez on Big miss every single one of his Nautilus hooks. That was super frustrating. But nevertheless, let's go into kind of day two here. Let's close this out. So day two, we're going to get to see Group B, and Group B for me is kind of an enigma in the sense that I think Movie Star Riders is a cut above everybody else. I think we're looking at PDW here, Penta, Trick. These guys have a lot of question marks for me, and I'm not necessarily sure which one of these three teams is going to rise above the other ones. And heck, look, it could be a situation where two of these teams rise above and Movie Star kind of fail like they did in the playoffs. But I don't think that's going to happen. And, this first game is going to be that Movie Star Riders team playing against, I believe it's Penta. Let's see. I believe it is. Give me a second here. We are looking at Movie Star they're playing Penta 1860. So, a couple of things that we can look at just right off the bat. Your goal difference at 15, 1783 versus a 2. I mean, let's talk about that. I think that the 1783 is slightly better, slightly stronger team there. You're looking at the gold per minute, about 100 gold per minute stronger. The gold differential, or the GDM right here, 275 versus 118. Big numbers to look at here. Look, Penta, 26 kills per or deaths per loss when they had those 5 losses, and Movie Star Riders 23.8. Unlike Anthosis Famagusta, Movie Star Riders played in a one of the major ERLs. They played in the LVP. There were good teams, even though it's UCAM and Vodafone that got through in the playoffs. There were other good teams. There was Mad Lions representative in that league was very good. The other team that didn't make it was G2 Arctic. Despite them, as you remember, falling flat in spring, they had another tremendous split. So there were some really strong teams in the LVP. So they're putting up these numbers against that level of competition. And then they put up these similar type of numbers when they played Fnatic in the play-ins. So I would think that this is going to transfer a lot more than that AF 28 kills per win. And I'm looking at Movie Star Riders here as a huge favorite and not anywhere near price what they should be. Looking at this, they are priced below. They're like the 4th or 5th highest priced team. So they're priced. Big is more expensive. Miles is more expensive. Carmine Corp is more expensive. Fnatic's more expensive. I mean, you're looking at 6,200 for their top laner. You're looking at, I guess their jungle's a little bit expensive at 7,400, mid 7,600. So they're not super cheap. Just kind of their top laner is. Let's kind of take a look at that. Is there a reason behind that, or just what they decided to do here for DraftKings? And I don't know, 55 kill participation, 15 kill share. Yeah, it's not super exciting, but you can utilize that salary savings. And if these teams are going to fight together, look, if they get 20, 15, not 15, but like 17, 18, 19, 20 kills, even if they don't get up to that average number, you're going to see a good score out of the top laner unless he's just split pushing all game. And yeah, look, it could happen, but I like it. I think Movie Star kind of crushes here. They're one of my odds favorites to win this tournament. I don't think a lot of people are on them the same way that they are, the bigs, the Misfits, Carmine Corp, but I think they're every bit as good. They don't necessarily have the same level of experience or the pedigree that some of these other teams bring, with the experience in spring and the experience in the LEC and the experience in past years. But I think this team, could put up some big fantasy scores. And at the end of the day, I really don't care if they win the tournament or not. If they help me win some tournaments, that's the end of the day what I care about. So that's my pick there. Movie Star Riders is probably where I'm going to be heaviest. I'll probably have a close to 50% exposure, just especially given their price. On the other side of that, though, Penta, good play. They were a relatively bloody team as well when they won 18.5. Again, their underlying statistics are really bad. I mean, the 44 first blood percentage, 28% first tower. I just have a hard time thinking that they're going to win this game. But if people are looking at the same statistics that I am, and they are, Esports Plug says this all the time. It's a great piece of information to think about. All this information that I have here is information that's readily available to anybody that wants to look for it, to anybody that's watching this. And so you have to remember the people that you're playing against, the people in these tournaments, are going to have the same information that you do. So this is going to be a situation where you're going to have some hedges on Penta 1860. This is going to be kind of, that traditional LEC game where it breaks the slate in the first game, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's kind of like Misfits and Rogue, but I think it's going to be more of the former as opposed to the later. Going into the second game, it's also out of this group. We're going to see PDW from the Ultra League play Tricked Esports from the NLC. Now, we've talked. I've kind of talked down about the NLC, and then Fnatic goes and beats Big, and Tricked beat Fnatic, and Tricked won me a lot of money and won a lot of people a good amount of money when they pulled that miraculous comeback with that late game Ezreal against I think it was XL during the regular split. So this is a game where, I don't know, when we see these Ultra League teams come into the EU Masters, with the exception of Kick last year, they tend to play a little bit more of a reserve style. I mean, you can take a look at just their numbers. When it comes to Rogue, 18-14, 17-16 for PDW, and then Illuminar 16-15. They don't tend to get into scraps the same way that some of these other regions do. And so maybe that scares you away here. I do think that they're a better team, but I think Trick is a real viable dog here. Similar statistics, goal difference at 15, similar. GDM is similar. Both of these teams have very similar statistics all the way across. PDW does have a little bit of a lower mid to late game rating right here at negative 1.7 versus 17.2. But again, they play in a much stronger league, and some of those things don't necessarily translate. So just looking at the pricing for these two teams, pretty similar. They're kind of looking at this as a 50-50. And let's go take a look at kind of the odds here. Let's see. I don't think any of these odds were jumped off the screen at me when I looked at them earlier. There was one game, but this wasn't it, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, what's up, Chris Green? Haven't talked to you in a while. Good to see you here. So we have Trick Esports minus 140, looking like they're the betting favorite. I think this game is a lot closer than even kind of the Illuminar Gaming Zero Tenacity one was. So this is kind of a toss-up. Play whichever team you want. Pricing dictates that. Given I feel that way, I'd probably place a wager on PDW here. We're going to go into the next game. Actually, you know what? Before we do that, let's just take a look at a couple things on both of these teams as they did not play yesterday. And then, the other thing that I wanted to kind of bring up as I was watching the games today, just when these teams are playing their first game, they might be a little bit tighter. And that might have been what we saw today with some of these low-scoring games. These guys, some of them have never played in the EU Masters. And as a result, maybe they're not playing up to the level that we expect them to. I expect it to be a lot faster, a lot looser, a lot more kills as the days go on. But this Group B is going to be one that's playing their first game. I don't have a lot of worries about Movistar and Penta 1860 from that end, but this game, PDW and Tricked, it could be one of those situations where you just don't see it. Both of these teams have pretty comparable kill participation in the 60s. I think you're targeting Sijak right here. I think that's how you say his name. It's probably not. But 28 kill share, 69.10 kill participation. Decent champ pool, as you can see here. Average kills 3.86. He's probably the captain that I'm targeting. Now, if I'm playing one with Movistar, that works out perfectly. I don't care who I pick from Movistar to be my captain. If I need Max Lore, that's fine. If I need Benzer, that's fine. If I need Kenzuk, that's fine. Every one of these guys has fantastic numbers. The only concerning one for Kenzuk is this a little bit low on his kill participation, specifically for a mid laner. He makes up for that, appears, with a little bit more kill share here. And then just moving into Tricked, it's pretty similar all the way across. Madly makes a great top play if you think Tricked is going to win. Yes, his kill share is pretty low, but that kill participation for a top laner, as you can see, is actually the highest. Yeah, it's the highest in the tournament. So, we targeted Adam last year because we looked at these numbers, looked at these sheets, and we saw that he could do some big things, and he certainly did. So maybe Madly does that for us as well. And some of these guys with Tricked, like Taxer, they have some experience in this tournament. This isn't something that it's their first time. So to that extent, maybe they play a little bit looser. They certainly weren't supposed to be here, specifically halfway through the split. So next game. Next game is Zero Tenacity against Big. I mean, I don't know, guys. Yeah, Big just lost. Zero Tenacity is a dog. This is a great spot. I don't like it at plus 255. I guess you could throw a half unit on it if you wanted to just get lucky. It is a best of one, and anything can happen. Big doesn't technically usually lose to teams like Zero Tenacity. Again, I think they're in a little bit of a different class. I wasn't impressed with them today. This wasn't a situation like in spring where we saw SUP really kind of be competitive in each one of their games and give you a reason to believe that they could beat the best teams in their group. I just don't think Zero Tenacity has a shot here. I don't want to touch Big at minus 360. Definitely think they're viable if you're going to play somebody like Penta 1860. If you're going to play PDW or Trick, you can pair them with Big because they are pretty expensive. Big's going to be the most expensive on the slate. We're looking at Reeker at 8,000. We're looking at Kidu at 8,200. Says and his inability to hit any hook, at 6,200. So I don't know if that's something that you want to pay for. Moving on, we have kind of another interesting game. This one's going to be one that you can take some stands on. So Fnatic Rising minus 275 against Illuminar. This was one that just from the betting line is kind of interesting for me, and in a position where I think the dog is more live, certainly more live than Zero Tenacity. We saw Illuminar kind of execute their game plan. We saw Fnatic have some holes in their game plan and their gameplay, but they're probably the better team. Fnatic probably wins this more often than not, but at plus 200, I like it. I think a lot of people are going to play Fnatic, and so you can get that leverage by playing Illuminar, probably more so as a small stack. One of the points about Fnatic, if I'm not misremembering this, and I might be, they're really bad at first blood percentages. It seems like every game that I watch them, they get first blood, despite the fact that they only did it 38% of the time during the regular split. They focus more on that first turret. As you can see, 75%, that's how they get ahead. But when we're looking at a team like Illuminar, they're not necessarily a world beater at first blood, but 50% is certainly a lot better than 38. So that might be their path to doing this, but 16 kills per win, Fnatic 15 deaths per loss. This might be a spot that you stay away from unless you're looking for some ultimate leverage with Illuminar and hoping that this is a close back and forth game, similar to what we saw with Mako and Vodafone, as Fnatic just tries to kind of throw the game away as they almost did today. Moving on. We've got Mouse and Mako. This, I don't know. For me, I thought Mouse played really well today. I thought that they kind of hung with Carmine. I thought Mako actually played a lot better, but the level of competition that Mouse was playing, the level of competition that Mako was playing are completely different. I think Mouse is a cut above Vodafone. I think Mouse is a cut ahead of a lot of teams in this tournament. And this is just going to be a game where they're going to dominate. They have a 17 kill per win. Mako, as you saw, can give up a ton of kills. I think Mouse is a fantastic spot in fantasy today or tomorrow, whatever you're watching this. I guess in tomorrow, because I'm it's 8:30 for me. So, look, Mouse is the third most expensive team, so they're priced below Big. They're priced below Carmine Corp. It's a situation where we can go ahead and pretty comfortably play Mouse in cash. I think this is probably my favorite spot, just from an expected kill total. Movie Star and Mouse would be kind of my 1 and 2. Just given price, because when we get into the next game, we're getting into Carmine and Vodafone. It's Carmine all the way for me. I don't think that there's any question about that. I thought you saw Vodafone can give up a ton of deaths, and Carmine can get a ton of kills, even though they didn't show it today. You're looking at a 19-19 team versus a 16-18 team. A team that was 14-4 in one of the toughest divisions in all of Europe. And then you have Vodafone, who by all means was in a difficult division in itself, but 8-10. Again, they kind of found their way through here. Their gold difference at 15 is -10. Byproduct of being sub 500 is your gold difference at 15 is probably not going to be so good. But that GDM -62, problems sometimes with the first dragon and scaling into that. And you can see that their early game, mid game, late game, all of these ratings are as expected in favor of Carmine. So when we're looking at this, just to kind of go back through it, we are back in Movie Star. I think I'm backing, Tricked or PDW. I'm going to play pretty split. Looking at Fnatic to beat Illuminar, but I think that plus 200 is worth at least a unit. Big is going to destroy Zero Tenacity, and in fact, it might be one of those games where they just win too hard and they're not viable, especially given how expensive they are. The fact that they lost today and the fact that they are so expensive does make them a little bit more interesting, similar to what Misfits were today. So, you can take some shots on them. And then, of course, we've got Mouse and KC going ahead and winning over Mako and Vodafone. So that's kind of the slate. If you guys want to hit me up on Twitter, if you have any questions, you can see kind of down here. It is Emmerich D4U. You can find me in a couple different places. In regards to EU Masters, I'm happy to talk about it. You can find me, over in the esports department Discord. And then coming up, we do have football season starting. So you can kind of find me also with all my DFS content, which is free over at drroto.com. But we also have a lot of premium tools, cheat sheets for your drafts coming up right now. I admittedly do not do a ton of season long, and I didn't know what defense to draft, so I went ahead and just checked out the cheat sheet, saw that the number 3 defense was still available for me, so I went ahead and took it. So there's a lot of cool cheat sheets there, a lot of good information from a lot of great minds. And then we've got baseball, we've got DFS content. I'm going to be doing, I think, 2 shows over there every week during football season. I'm going to have a GPP article, so a lot of good stuff. Check it out. You got season-long subscriptions. We've got monthly subscriptions. We got a lot of different options. You can just buy the cheat sheets if you want to for your draft. But hey, if you like the content, please go ahead, drop a little sub, a like on the YouTube video. I appreciate it. Any type of questions, anything, you can find me in either of those Discords. And we'll take it from there. So let's get some green screens today. I'm going to try and at least double that 50 cents, and maybe try and take down a GPP or two. So I'll talk to you guys later.